Delighted for you're joining us for today's ESPC community webinar. Today I'm joined by Sue Hanley, MVP, who will cover knowledge management strategies in the era of Copilot, beyond the basics. We love hearing what you guys have to say, so remember to join in conversation about today's webinar and more on X. Our handle is at ESPC_community and our hashtag is hashtag ESPC25. Tweet us, tag us, and tell us what you learned. Don't forget to check out our Learning Hub, which updates the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. You can access and view the Learning Hub by visiting our website, sharepointeurope.com, and clicking Content tab at the top. Don't let the learning stop here. Continue to keep up and stay ahead by joining us for our next webinar, Buttons in SharePoint Lists, Low-Code Logic, with Laura Rogers, MVP. This webinar will take place tomorrow, Tuesday, October 21st at 4 p.m. CEST. For more information on this webinar, please check out www.sharepointeurope.com/SharePoint Week. In celebration of SharePoint Week, we're offering an exclusive €500 discount on ESPC 25 tickets on the first 10 new bookings only. Use the promo code SharePoint Week Special when registering. Make sure to book before October 31st to qualify. ESPC 25 takes place in Dublin, December the 1st to the 4th, bringing together the Microsoft 365, Azure, and AI communities from across Europe. If you've been considering attending, this is your moment to book the best possible rate. Scan the QR code today. As always, if you have any questions at any stage, feel free to type in the chat box and Sue will get to them during the webinar. This webinar recorded and added to the Resource Center, where you'll be notified by email when it is available. And now I'm going to pass you over to today's webinar presenter, Sue. Hello, Sue. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks, Sean. Thanks so much. Let me see if I can make my screen sharing work. And while I'm getting this to work, I just want to say, can't encourage people enough to join us at ESPC in Dublin. It is one of the absolute best events, extremely well run. There'll be so many amazing presenters from the community in Microsoft. So this is an incredible opportunity to get a major discount. So if you hadn't already been planning to come, yeah, please come. It's just such a
Thanks.
wonderful event.
Perfect. Yeah, I can see your screen perfectly. Thank you.
Thanks. So I'm really delighted to join you here today to talk about one of my absolute favorite topics. Going to try to get it all squeezed in to about an hour, but Sean's assured me that no kittens are going to die if I go over, and so I might. And so I would love to hear from you as I'm sharing some of my thoughts about this topic and just a little bit about how I come into this. About 25, 30, maybe almost 30 years ago, I was the director of knowledge management for a global consultancy. And as I switched into the Microsoft SharePoint space, I really brought with me my real feelings that all intranets have an outcome goal of improving the knowledge in the organization, that knowledge management is really at the root of everything we're trying to accomplish with the intranets that I spend all of my time building today. And so I think that many, many organizations are looking for ways to how do we take what we know and bring it to the entire organization to empower them to do great things, take advantage of what we've learned. And so I can't think of anything more important than refocusing how we think about knowledge in the era of generative AI. But just to take us back a little bit, this is, one of the original sort of founding quotes that drove a lot of the knowledge management industry, was this recognition that we, way back in the day, in global organizations, we don't always know what everybody knows. And if we did know and could take advantage of what everyone in the organization knows, we'd be so much more productive. And here we are, 30 or so years after Lou Platt made that statement, and we still have KM challenges. In many organizations, knowledge is still locked in silos. We have all kinds of organizational barriers that prevent us from sharing knowledge across those silos. Sometimes they're driven by how we're incentivizing people in terms of their compensation. Sometimes the barrier is time. Sometimes the barrier is culture, but the cost is real. And there's a significant impact in organizations if we don't pay attention to how we are sharing what we are learning and transferring that knowledge across the organization. I'm going to start out by saying that technology is not the solution to knowledge management. At the root, you need technology to enable knowledge to flow across these silos. However, I don't want anyone to think that I think the answer to this knowledge issue is technology. But we need technology in global organizations, and technology can certainly enhance how we share knowledge. So we've got superpowers in the organization, and we've got a lot in the Microsoft space, and Copilot is adding even more knowledge superpowers. And we've made a lot of progress along the past 35 years of KM. But as I said, technology alone is not enough. We need a culture that recognizes and rewards collaborative behaviors. If you're not recognized for the benefit of collaborating with colleagues outside your immediate work team, if that doesn't drive any recognition in the organization, it's very unlikely that people will be incented to share. We need to make sure that we have processes that really almost require us to contribute what we've learned. Some of the top leading organizations in the world in the knowledge space have work processes that at various checkpoints in engagements have a requirement, I guess, to share what you've learned in the form of describing the project, indicating where you need help, describing what you're learning at key checkpoints, and sharing deliverables at the end, along with your insights. We also need to ensure that the culture of the organization provides a space in which we can ask questions and share answers. This is really in an attempt to get to what I'll call the tacit knowledge in an organization. Tacit knowledge is exchanged by people having conversations. And one of the things we need to make sure is that we've got a safe space to ask a question and to not know anything. I've been in so many organizations where asking a question is almost frowned upon. And that kind of cultural barrier will prevent even all the best technology in the world from supporting your knowledge management initiatives. So it's people, it's process, it's culture, and it's recognizing the importance of all of these things to drive value and create content that Copilot can take advantage of. And it's important to recognize that we need different types of strategies for different types of knowledge. And you've probably seen a diagram like this before, but explicit knowledge is that which is written down. And we've got some tech that can deal very nicely with written down knowledge. But it's the stuff that's in people's heads that hasn't yet been written down and is only partially expressed in content that Copilot can absorb and extract. That also needs to be part of our knowledge management strategy. And so with that in mind, let me go into sort of the technology story, and I'll wrap it up again by saying this is not enough, but once you've got the processes in place, you need some tech to support it. So SharePoint for me is the hero app for explicit knowledge. That knowledge is primarily shared with the organization on your intranet. You share private work in progress files in Teams, which is of course SharePoint at the back end for file content. But when you think of the intranet as a source of organizational content, both in files and pages, we've got a technology that we can use and enhance with how we organize and present that content to help our tech take advantage of that content. I'm super excited about the knowledge agent in SharePoint to help us curate that content and keep it up to date. But remember, the content has to be there to begin with. And one of the most important things we can think about as we are designing that content is to structure that content in a way that sort of gets people to what they need. And primarily that's going to start on our intranet. And so how do we do that? Well, we need to think about the containers in which we place our content in SharePoint. And so primarily, I think we have 4 places on an intranet. We have the home site, hubs, how we collect related sites. We have the fundamental grounding source for content in SharePoint, which is the construct of a site, and then pages that live on sites. I'm not talking a lot about files, although files can be critically important. A great intranet is about storytelling, and I think probably you're going to find more pages in an ideal intranet than you will files, but all of this needs to be structured and organized so that we can divide who needs to take care of and curate that content so that we can know that it is accurate and reliable. There's a lot of things we can do to support knowledge discovery. SharePoint has a really great capability to target content so that the right people can see the right content at the right time, and that we can ensure that you're not overloaded with content that is not relevant to you. The way you typically enter the SharePoint world is through your intranet front door, and the home site itself has some knowledge discovery superpowers. My favorite superpower for that front door of the intranet is actually related to search, because we can, as we're human curating our content, tell search, both Copilot search and native Microsoft search, which content is the authoritative source for which query or keyword. And that is done by curating bookmarks and acronyms. If you are not already doing that, you should be. And the reason it's so important is that the only place bookmarks are, which is sort of like search engine optimization for SharePoint, the only place you will see a bookmark is when search is at the tenant level. As much as I've been begging Microsoft to make bookmarks available at any place someone searches, right now, and I think for the foreseeable future, you have to be searching across the tenant to get the benefit and the power of a search bookmark. That's where the home site comes into play, because the home site, when you declare a home site in Viva Connections, which is effectively you're declaring it a front door for SharePoint or for your intranet, search is automatically scoped to the entire tenant. And so as you think about your organizational construct, you want to think about whether I need a site, whether I need a hub, and whether I need a page. And sites, I think, are the foundational aspect of our structure. And one of the reasons is that sites allow us to scope the permissions for a collection of content so that we can assign responsibility. And at the end of the day, while an agent can help us discover content, a human will need to make sure that the only discoverable content is that which is current and reliable. And so we want to scope that content into a manageable structure so that, number one, we can control and coordinate keeping it up to date. And number two, we can have a container for the knowledge agent. And that's the latest feature in our knowledge management journey from Microsoft. And the knowledge agent, which is in preview right now, but anyone can sign up for the preview, provides a tool to help manage the content on your site and add metadata and context to the content as well. So it's a really cool tool. I'll talk about it in a little bit, but it's right now scoped to the site. So the first decision you're going to make is, do I need a site? And the site is an important container for knowledge management. What kind of site do you need in your intranet? Well, you do need to be aware that knowledge exists in private containers, team sites, which are the back end of a Microsoft team, and intranet sites, which is where authoritative content goes to be shared. And we need to be aware of both the outcome goals and permissions when we are creating that content. For an intranet, I don't think the source of content should be Microsoft Teams. Teams is where we collaborate and create content. Intranets and communication sites is where we go to publish that content. So I think we need to really, as we're thinking about what do we need to shore up in terms of bringing knowledge to people when and where they need it, start with the content that has the biggest impact, and that is likely to be the content on your communication sites. Hubs allow us to bring sites together to create a scope that is for search and a scope for SharePoint and knowledge agents. And so, or actually a SharePoint agent. So by definition, when you add a hub to a SharePoint agent, the scope of that agent is all sites that are associated to the hub. So a hub is a really important tool to help organize our content for knowledge delivery. And again, it's another way to ensure that we're scoping our agents and our search queries to authoritative content. And at the lowest level, we have pages, and pages are where we tell stories. And I think it's most important to think about how you structure the story on a page so that it communicates the message that drives the outcomes and experiences that your users want. It isn't about more pages or more content on pages. It's about the right content that is current and accurate and up to date and maintained so that search and humans and agents can consume reliable and authoritative content. The other thing we can do, that the other superpower that SharePoint has, is a knowledge discovery tool that we as individuals can control. By following a site, we can promote content into our news feed, bringing content that we care about to us in all of the places that we're working in SharePoint. We can save a page to look at it later, knowledge that we want to go back to. We can pin libraries and folders to quick access so that we can easily move files or find those files later on. And so we have a lot of control as individuals and as site owners to bring content to people when and where they need it. And so again, just to sum up, why is this so important for knowledge management? It's really about ensuring that your content is well governed. And so site structure is critical to creating great knowledge management experiences. Agents in SharePoint have been around for a while. They're incredibly helpful when the content that they're reasoning over is grounded and the instructions that you provide to your agent are very, very clear. And I think the future of all this Copilot automation will make the instructions less important, but you have a lot of control over the agents in SharePoint and how they can answer questions and what you want them to do if they do not have an answer. So I think it's really important that we look at the agents that come with our site, so we build agents that actually address the problems we're trying to solve. And I think there's a whole bunch of different scenarios that SharePoint agents can help support. My absolute favorite thing, recent addition to SharePoint, is the knowledge agent. I think it's got so many opportunities to help us. Number one, it can help organize your content by tagging and classifying files with auto-filled metadata. And I think this is important, but again, I'm really hoping that we are not building large document repositories in our intranet. But the part of the knowledge agent that I think is most exciting for me is the feature that is available to site owners called Improve This Site. And it's really designed to look at content that is out of date. And as I like to remind my children, just because something's old doesn't mean it's not useful, but it doesn't also mean that you shouldn't take a look at it and see if it's still current. So the knowledge agent really helps the content owner pay attention to content that they maybe haven't hugged lately. I also think it's got a kind of cool feature that says, hey, people are searching for content that's not found on your site. Might help you identify content that you need. And then, of course, the holy grail of content management is fixing broken links, and anything that can help a content owner or a site owner with that problem is only going to result in better outcomes. So that knowledge agent is context aware. So based on my permissions, it'll give me different superpowers. As I said, public preview now, and anyone can sign up. GA is coming in January of 2026. I'll make my slides available, but look, it's a first release. It's got some good things, some not as clear things. We're not exactly sure how everything's going to be priced, but I think the most important thing is it is absolutely the right step for advancing the outcomes we're trying to get to with our knowledge management initiatives with super powerful technology. Other things to think about in terms of structure is navigation. I hope that at this point in your intranet navigation, you are not just delivering the org chart, although I know many people are. I think it's important to think about how we can guide our intranet users to the tasks that people want to accomplish using familiar terms. I do this for a living. I'm an information architect. This is what I do. I don't always get it right the first time, and it's really important to test, is this actually helping? People have asked me, and I got asked this just last week, are we going to still need intranets in the era of Copilot? And part of me says, well, where is Copilot going to get its content if we don't have humans creating it, curating it, managing it, and keeping it up to date? What I think might change is the navigation story, because more and more people are approaching your intranet via search or Copilot search. That may be different. I think we need navigation for the immediate future, but if I was going to focus on where am I going to spend my calories in order to drive the best knowledge outcomes, my focus is going to be on content management, and my secondary focus might be on that, or tertiary even might be on navigation. So fuss about content management and test navigation so that you have data to support, is it working for me? One little bonus that you get from SharePoint is every time you find a human's name in any kind of SharePoint outcome, you can hover over it and learn more about that person. So expertise in context, which I think is really important. So just to kind of wrap things up, how does SharePoint support knowledge management outcomes? Curated repositories, organizing our content with metadata and navigation, security trimming so that we can assign responsibility, and the super exciting agents in SharePoint to use generative AI to bring knowledge to you based on your question, which might not be just a keyword. So OneDrive, although it is your initial, basically your content and your view of the world, OneDrive is also important for knowledge discovery because it is the file finder in Microsoft 365. So if you know that content was shared with you in a file, instead of starting with plain search, go to OneDrive and search from OneDrive, because it will restrict the scope of your search to files. And it doesn't matter whether it's in your private content or it's been shared with you in a team or in an intranet or from someone else's OneDrive. OneDrive can explore it all for you. If you're not using Viva Engage today, then you should be, because there is no better way to encourage the exchange of tacit knowledge than Viva Engage. So if SharePoint's the hero for explicit knowledge, Engage is really the hero for tacit knowledge. Now, tacit knowledge, once you write it down, is actually explicit, but Engage is the place that we can encourage or help people in the organization communicate, engage, share, and exchange at scale in the construct of a community. So communities of practice are kind of the fundamental way we've been exchanging knowledge for, since human beings have existed. And they were kind of the first concept or key initiative that way back in the 90s, early to mid 90s, when knowledge management was becoming a thing. These were what we wanted to capitalize in our organizations, the already existing communities that just needed a space and opportunity, physical and maybe online, to connect. And so communities of practice, the hero for app for communities of practice, is really Viva Engage. And what's critical in terms of a new feature in Engage is the ability to designate, hey, this person is an expert in this topic of this community. And that expert designee identifies an answer as coming from an authoritative source, not just when you're looking at the community and its answers, but it also helps Copilot boost that content in generating answers that are grounded in content in Viva Engage. I just want to state one thing. A community and a team are not the same thing, and Microsoft has technologies that support both optimally, But I believe that even in small organizations, the community construct is where you exchange content about a topic or a discipline with people outside your immediate work group. And teams, which you are assigned to be on, are for sharing and collaborating on content with your immediate work group. So I think there's a difference between a community and a team, and there's different technologies to support both. Communities are great because, especially in an organization where you can't know everybody, asking a question in a community lets you tap in to the knowledge of the organization. And I love the ability of a community to sort of help supplement search by letting people guide you to the best quality content for what you're looking for. And so communities can now, with agents inside communities, generate content. Although there is the ability for what the agent in Viva Engage does is it looks for unanswered questions and it can generate an answer to those questions based on the content in the community and soon based on content in SharePoint as well. What I hope is that you do not turn that on without turning on the feature that requires a human to review the answer before it gets posted. Although you can auto post, that feature to me seems like a non-starter. I'm fine with the agent looking for an unanswered question and attempting to generate an answer. I am not fine if it gets posted without a human in the loop. And so there is the ability to do that. I think it's important that we turn on that feature, that an admin or a SME can determine, is this the right answer to this question? The really interesting thing about this is, although to engage with an agent in Viva Engage, you need to have the full meal deal Copilot license. To see the answer that's been reviewed and approved, you do not. That's part of the seated experience for Viva Engage. And so we can actually take advantage of a lot of the experiences and not necessarily with everybody having that license just yet. Viva Engage also allows us to determine what we are most interested in and bring that knowledge based on the topic, a conversation topic that is happening across multiple communities. And I love the feature that allows me to choose how I get notified about that content. Does it come in email? Does it? Where do I want to see that content? Do I want to make Engage or interacting with my community as a destination, or do I want that content to come to me? We also have the feature in Engage, a very powerful feature that allows the admin of a community to override my notification settings to send something to me if it is urgent. In a community of practice, I would imagine that that urgent announcement doesn't happen very often, but if you are using Engage as a communications tool, this might be something that you do want to leverage if something is urgent or some new ruling or regulation just came out. It might even be appropriate to use this capability in a standard community. Communities have great tools so that we can measure their health, which is an important part of managing, or it's sort of taking care of and curating the knowledge in our organization. And I think that's a super powerful feature that we should absolutely be aware of. But as I started the conversation by saying that technology doesn't make knowledge management happen, you need a whole suite of culture and process and people things in order for that to help. But you can enable successful communities with a culture that rewards collaboration, with processes, with identifying community and subject matter experts and admins to manage communities, and then applying the technology. Most important thing to have a great community of practice is a safe space to ask questions. And if people are going to get dinged because they didn't know an answer that you think they should have, or they said something that was true for them and you don't disagree kindly or point them to a more reliable search feature or capability or requirement or policy in an effective way, you're going to kill the ability for Viva Engage to provide a space to make knowledge happen. So all kinds of great features in Viva Engage as a tool to help us exchange knowledge in the moment, ask questions, bring the right knowledge to people from other people at the time that I really need it. And Viva Engage in public communities is also a grounding source for Copilot. And so if you're asking a Copilot a question, you can actually, in your work environment, you can actually get answers that come from your communities. Another interesting feature, this is a premium feature. So you need either the Viva Suite license or the CNC license in order to use it, is to use AI to match questions to answers and match people who might be able to answer to the opportunity to answer a question. So Answers in Viva is actually a tool to help promote and exchange knowledge and get an answer curated by a human or created by a human that has already been asked to help guide the or answers to the questions that you may have. So Viva Engage can address a lot of the challenges that we have in bringing the right knowledge to the right people inside an organization. And Answers in Viva is not the same. I'm going to share my slides, and so I'm not going to read this, but I want to make sure that you understand that Answers in Viva and Agents in Viva Engage are actually two separate products licensed completely separately. One is more about structured Q&A, and that's Answers in Viva. And Agents in Viva Engage is actually about generating answers to unanswered questions. They can work in concert, but they have different triggers and different licensing models as well. Another newer feature in the Microsoft 365 suite is the people skills space. And what I think is important about this is another one of the holy grail tasks of knowledge management is expertise location. And I think that's really what people skills indirectly can help us with, because it uses AI to identify skills that you may haven't been totally impressed with what it thinks I know about, but it also allows me to supplement that with what I really know about it and make that knowledge discoverable. People skills, I think, was really designed to help find the right skill set to match people to teams and projects. But I think there's this underlying capability of helping us identify who can help me with something, not generating an answer, but generating a person who can potentially help me find the answers to the questions that I have. So from an individual perspective, I can see what AI thinks I know about. I can review it and approve it and add more. I can decide who can see those skills. And although, sure, maybe my organization can use this to decide what skills do we need to know and grow, it also helps me decide, hey, who can help me with this problem? I'm going to take a breath and just make sure there aren't any questions in the chat. I know Sean's going to interrupt me if there are. All right, so search seems like something so obvious when it comes to delivering knowledge. We all struggle to find information. What has been happening over the years in Microsoft 365 is it's the same Microsoft 365 search driving all of those experiences, but the context in which you see search will drive the source of the content. So when you're looking at search inside OneDrive, you're looking at files that have been shared with you or that you've created inside OneDrive. When you're looking at SharePoint, when you start your search from SharePoint, it's the same search engine, but the content that it is reasoning over is much more inclusive. We now also have Copilot search. And I honestly, as I was thinking about how I was going to explain this, I needed Copilot to help me understand the differences between a regular SharePoint search and Copilot search, and when I might want to use which one. And so the differences between the two searches primarily are how you get there, and the license that you have is going to determine which search experience you're going to see. SharePoint search or Microsoft search is keyword based, and my Copilot search is more semantic search based. Although if you have a Copilot license, that semantic search engine, if there's one license in the organization, semantic search becomes enabled for the entire organization. I think that you still need to think about, you're still going to use both. And what you want, and where you enter all of these different things. You have Copilot search and Copilot chat and regular search and regular chat. And at the end of the day, you've got connectors that you can use to extend and expand all of them. Same connectors that extend Microsoft Search will extend Copilot Search as well. But the most important thing is that all search is grounded in the permissions to the content that are available to you. And that is, again, the fundamental foundation for creating search and Copilot experiences is good content hygiene, good content governance. So permissions and sensitivity and all of the content protectors that you put on your content to shore up your data estate apply not just to regular search, but to Copilot search as
Hey,
well.
Sue, there's a question in there. Which connectors are available to extend search results?
Well, there's a gazillion of them. If you just bingle that or Copilot that, Microsoft it'll take you to a page of all of the different connectors. So Microsoft has a whole bunch of them that they provide, and then there are third-party search connectors that are available that you can acquire and install into your tenant to take you into. I have law firms that have search connectors for iManage content. Many of my clients who have ServiceNow have search connectors for ServiceNow. The list is huge. I think it's hundreds and hundreds of search connectors that are available.
Perfect. And just one more question there is, the semantic search for everyone enabled via the one Copilot license, where is it surfaced?
It's going to be surfaced as you are searching. It will help bring the right answers to you in your keyword search and regular search. It's just going to improve the outcomes for you. So it just enables that index for the entire tenant.
Perfect. Looks like all the questions so far. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. All right. So there are lots of things you can do with regular Microsoft Search to what I'll call enable bespoke experiences. The most important one that impacts both Copilot and regular search is acronyms and bookmarks. If you haven't done it, do it, because it is optimizing search for your outcomes, and it's declaring what content is more authoritative than others. It does not replace the need to have effective content management, but it can certainly help guide users while you're working on all of your content cleanup. Ultimately, if you want to create completely bespoke search experiences, PNP search is the way to go, and you can customize search using, I will call this as close to a first-party solution as you can possibly get to customize the outcomes that you want to deliver the exact right experiences or the grounded experiences and filterable experiences in the different contexts of where people work. I see a question about, do non-Copilot users benefit from the singular Copilot license? I have heard that that is true. I do not have any verified knowledge of that, but what I have heard is that one license improves search, one Copilot license turns on the semantic index, which then benefits all of your users. But honestly, if only one person has a Copilot license, you're not going to get the full benefit of the experience. But I will just say that that's what I've heard. I can't verify that that is 100,000% true. And as I said, search is not going to be helpful, and AI is going to have more and more issues if your information garden is overgrown with rotten, redundant, outdated, and trivial content. Most important thing you can possibly do to make your knowledge outcomes more successful is to focus on governance. Clean up your garden, shore up your data estate, and all of the tools that you have to drive knowledge in the organization will be so much more. It will be so much improved, and they'll be so much happier that you did that. And of course, we really have to talk about Copilot, which is maybe what everybody thought I was going to talk about. I try to talk about the things that you already have and own so that you understand that knowledge management is an outcome goal that does not necessarily require Copilot licenses, but like with all technology, it's enhanced and improved with different technologies. And Copilot has, by the way, every time you say it in a presentation, an angel gets its wings. And so I think I'm like hoping that a few angels are getting their wings. You're kind of required to mention that word when you do a presentation in the Microsoft space. I, as a knowledge management professional, was so excited about Viva Topics, which is one of the now 2 Viva suite tools that have been deprecated. Copilot, Search, and SharePoint are just not exactly the same as what Viva Topics did for us. And while Viva Topics, if you tried to deploy it, required a lot of human intervention in order to get the AI to do anything close to what you wanted, its real superpower was delivering knowledge in everywhere we were in the Microsoft space. You get a highlight under a keyword in Word and would pop up all the resources related to that topic. Without you, it's like search without having to search, knowledge discovery without having to discover. Copilot is as pervasive, but not quite in the same way. But boy, there's a lot that Copilot can do to enhance our knowledge capabilities. Not for nothing, but it can help you rewrite your content to make that content more consumable. To get actually new content, again, it should be human approved content, but it can help you create content to share with others. Copilot for metadata extraction. No matter what, search and Copilot outcomes are improved when we have metadata to ground that story. Today, you cannot ground a Copilot based on metadata. That's on my dream wish list. I know this will happen, but I would love to be able to restrict an agent to a particular content type, because I think that will, again, allow me to have an agent design to generate answers for a very specific topic where I have curated the content. So while it's not,
Sorry, Sue, there's another question in there. I don't know if you answered it already, but are SharePoint metadata finally available?
Yeah. So the answer is ish. So search uses metadata to help prioritize your content. But can we ground an agent based on the value of a column, or based on a column, or based on the content type? My answer to that, well, I know the answer to that is not yet. And again, at the top of my wish list as well. So I share that desire. But let's just say that right now, metadata can certainly enhance your knowledge discovery experiences, because look, not all knowledge is generated in Copilot or found via search. Sometimes we are in a document library and we want to be able to filter that content to get closer to the asset that we are looking for. Having metadata helps us do that. It helps improve our decision making and saves a lot of time for content. It's not search. I really call that filtering, but many, many, many people call that search. So Copilot can help us find content more effectively because we're asking questions using natural language rather than keyword language. Copilot delivers knowledge in your contexts, in the context in which you're working. So if you're in Word, yes, you can ask questions about the content that you're in. Copilot in PowerPoint can leverage your organization asset libraries in SharePoint to make sure that the content generated inside PowerPoint uses images that you've reviewed and approved for your products and your brand and the kind of imagery that you want to represent as an organization. That's a teeny little PowerShell script that you add, or PowerShell setting that you add to the PowerShell that you're already using to create an organization asset library. So you should absolutely do that if you want to use those images. Those images are not in the brand center. They are in the site on which the brand center asset lives. And so I prefer that is a unique site in SharePoint, but I have a lot of clients that have sort of put those org asset libraries on their marketing site. And therefore, that means that's the site in which the brand center is added, but the site is still the marketing site. The app is the brand center app that is available on the marketing site. The more important thing is those org asset libraries live in the same place, same site on which you host your branding, your themes, and your fonts and your colors for SharePoint. So really important to make sure that you've got that setting. But you still have to shore up your governance. No matter how much AI you throw at your solutions, you are still responsible for governance. I think you should always, if you're using the agent in Viva Engage, be responsible for validating that the answers are correct. My third bullet on this slide is the answer to that question. Metadata is used for relevance right now, not yet to ground an answer scope, but boy, I am really hoping that that happens. Today, you're also responsible for teaching people how to write great prompts and how to write great instructions for the agents that you create. I think teaching people how to write great prompts is adds a level of friction to using Copilot that is going down, but is still there. And I think we won't really get full adoption until you just don't have to take a class in prompt writing in order to interact with an agent. So Copilot absolutely can help us improve the flow of knowledge in our organization, improving the way we find relevant content, improving tagging so that we can filter and sort and find our content in a lot of different ways, hopefully identifying high quality content, bringing quality content to different places, and then helping search work much better. You may be wondering, should I be using Copilot search or regular search? Honestly, I think it depends. And so I put together this little chart with the help of Copilot and me working together to come up with sort of which search should I be using in which context. And so again, you'll have all these slides so you can look at this chart as well. And I don't want to leave out in a discussion of knowledge management what I'll call the friends and family of sort of the big things that we've talked about so far. So Teams is a great way to exchange knowledge within a team. I don't think Teams is a source of organizational knowledge, but I'm happy to debate that. It's a really fun conversation to have. Loop is a way to share content in new and interesting and engaging ways. Viva Learning is a way to bring learning resources into the flow of work. Viva Learning is now integrated into Microsoft Search. So when you're searching for a topic, you can actually get courses that are aligned with that topic. Sometimes when I've been doing searching in my own tenant, the Viva Learning content comes up before my content does. I'd like to deprioritize it a little bit. But again, it is a great way of saying, hey, you might be looking for this content, but hey, we've got some learning content associated with this as well. And of course, Copilot pages to help people share and exchange and build on sort of that multiplayer AI collaboration. As I wrap things up, I want to just bring it home back to where I started. It's not all about technology. Process matters. I think you still need to have other kinds of knowledge management initiatives to really drive the experiences in your organization. So one organization many years ago did something I thought was just brilliant. And they created effectively a masterclass lunch experience by bringing in senior members of their team to do kind of lunch and learns, to talk about, here are some of the most challenging things I faced in my career. Here's how we solved them. Here's the techniques we use. Here's the technologies we use. Here's the processes and people that were involved in this. It started at a pharmaceutical, and it was my fill in the blank experience. I just thought it was such a clever thing. First time they did it, they thought maybe 10 people would show up, and the room was oversubscribed. They couldn't get all the people in the room. So after that, they started doing them in person and online all at the same time. Over time, the people who were organizing that, moved roles or left the organization. About 15 years after I'd read about this, and I still think it's a brilliant idea. I was at a conference and met someone from that organization, and I said, one of the most effective knowledge transfer techniques that I've ever learned about, and I have replicated in many places, was what you guys are doing. How is that going? And she said, we did that? No idea. So knowledge management at a very well organized organization and a really, really great technique. As people changed, that knowledge was not transferred. It does require some initiative to make that happen. And I think that's the difference, is that it isn't all technology things that can help drive knowledge in the organization. Creating mentoring opportunities, developing master classes and having people participate in them, sending people to conferences and having them share what they learned. I was at Collab Days New England, and there was a whole last Friday, and there was a bunch of people from Takeda, and they created, I think, a loop workspace, and they divided and conquered. Everybody went to a different session, and they took notes in that shared loop workspace so that everybody who was there had the benefit of learning what everybody else was learning, and they shared it also with people who couldn't attend. So thinking about those initiatives that are technology enabled, but not 100% technology, is a great way to ensure that you are developing a culture that is supporting and encouraging knowledge management. This is one of my favorite quotes from the Chief People Officer at Twilio: culture is like your organization's operating system. And I think at the end of the day, that is what we should be focusing on as we think about, in addition to all these enabling technologies. But culture really, really matters if you want to transform how knowledge flows. Human knowledge is contextual. You can't command people to share, but you can really you can encourage and reward and recognize people who do share. At my organization, when I was running KM, we had a Knowledge in Action Award that we gave out every year. We gave out a bunch of them. And actually, it had a cash prize. So was I paying people to tell us their great stories? Well, maybe I was. But the bottom line was, these awards, to submit, you had to describe a scenario in which you leveraged the people or the content or any aspect of the knowledge in our organization to drive value. And you had to describe what the value was. You had to measure it in terms of time saved, revenue earned, proposal won, whatever. We didn't care actually what the measure was, but that you measured it. And I think we got 20 submissions in the first hour. Wow. That demonstrated $20 million of savings, if you will, in that first hour. What I did learn about that was when I advertised the contest and didn't put the prize, I didn't get very many submissions. But when I put the prize, which in our case was like a $250 Amex gift card, 20 submissions in the first hour. So again, culture matters. You need to collect those stories. And by telling those stories, you are basically reinforcing the culture. So of course, when we gave out the awards, I got the CEO to do it. And I made him tell us one of his own stories. And believe me, that helped the following year. So just to wrap everything up, you have a lot of technology superpowers to help unlock your both explicit and tacit knowledge. But at the end of the day, knowledge management requires people, it requires process, it requires culture. And AI is just the icing on the cake to really help us take what we've got and the culture and all of those processes and bring it to the next level. So there you go. I managed to do this in just under an hour.
Great timing. So thank you, Sue, for a great presentation. Should you wish to ask a question, feel free to put in the chat now. See if any more questions come in.
I know people may want the slides. What is the process for getting the slides?
Yeah, so you can send them to me through email, and then I will put it underneath the recording on our website. Yeah, and then I can put it underneath the YouTube as well. Yeah.
All right. So when the recording is available, the slides will be available as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. I think that's all the questions. So I'll just put out a poll, see if people rate. Thank you, everyone. So on behalf of the ESPC community, we'd like to send a big thank you to you again, Sue, for taking time out today at Kara's webinar. We really appreciate it. So That's the end of today's webinar. You can find this webinar and more at sharepointeurope.com/research center. Thanks again for all of you joining us today, and I hope you join us again soon. Take care.